You should feel honored, Rebecca said, swirling her champagne in the crystal glass our grandmother had left us. Not everyone gets to be maid of honor at the society wedding of the year. My name is Charlotte Warren, and I was watching my childhood best friend celebrate stealing my future with our grandmother's favorite champagne and our grandmother's favorite glass. The same grandmother who had trusted us to share her estate equally, believing until her last breath that her two beloved granddaughters would honor her wishes. Nothing to say, Charlie? Rebecca prompted, using the nickname she knew I hated. No tears about the money. No lecture about family loyalty. I kept my expression neutral as I studied her. The designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, the enormous diamond ring her fiancé Thomas had surprised her with, the wedding planning binders spread across what used to be our grandmother's antique desk. Congratulations, I said simply. The wedding sounds perfect. She frowned slightly, thrown off by my calm demeanor. That's it? No drama? No threats to tell Thomas where the money really came from? Would it change anything? No, she laughed, taking another sip of champagne. The money's spent, Charlie. The venues are booked. The deposits are paid. And in 6 weeks, I'm marrying into one of Boston's oldest families. Everything I've always dreamed of. What she meant was everything she'd stolen from both of us. Our grandmother's estate was supposed to be split equally, enough for each of us to start our own lives, pursue our dreams. Instead, Rebecca had spent the past year systematically draining every account she could access, using her power of attorney and her knowledge of banking to move money around until there was nothing left. Well, I said, picking up my purse, I'm sure it will be beautiful. Don't be like that, she called as I turned to leave. We had fun spending it, didn't we? All those shopping trips, the spa days. I let you enjoy some of it before it was gone. I paused at the door, thinking of all the times we'd played in this house as children, all the summers spent listening to our grandmother's stories, all the promises we'd made to each other. You're right, Rebecca. I did enjoy it. More than you know. As I walked out of our grandmother's house, Rebecca's house now, thanks to some creative manipulation of the will, I could hear her already on the phone, probably calling her wedding planner about some extravagant new detail she'd thought of. What she didn't know was that I'd discovered her deception 3 months ago, right after she'd started moving the larger sums. She thought she was being clever, using her banking background to hide the transfers, but she'd forgotten one crucial detail. I worked in digital forensics. The drive home was quiet. Through the car windows, I could see Boston's familiar skyline, the same view I'd grown up with. The same view our grandmother had loved right up until the end. My phone buzzed. A text from Maya, my colleague and one of the few people who knew what I'd been planning. Is it done? Phase 1 complete, I replied. She doesn't suspect a thing. Maya was one of 3 people who knew what I'd been quietly preparing since I first discovered Rebecca's betrayal. Like me, she'd seen through the perfect facade. The extravagant spending, the whirlwind romance with Thomas, the carefully constructed image of the society bride-to-be. As I pulled into my apartment complex, I passed Mrs. Chen from next door, who gave me a sympathetic smile. She'd been friends with our grandmother, had watched Rebecca and me grow up. She knew what was happening. I'd probably seen through Rebecca's act from the beginning. Such a shame, she'd said to me last week. Your grandmother would be heartbroken. But that was where Mrs. Chen was wrong. Our grandmother hadn't been naive, she'd been strategic. What Rebecca never understood was that the estate she thought she'd cleverly stolen was only part of the picture. I entered my apartment and went straight to my home office, where Maya was waiting with our other conspirators, James from cybersecurity and Lisa, our grandmother's former secretary. Everything's in place, Maya said as I walked in. We're just waiting for your signal. I nodded, setting my bag down and looking at the wall of monitors they'd set up. Each screen showed different aspects of our plan: bank records, property deeds, social media feeds, and most importantly, the evidence we gathered of Rebecca's systematic theft. How long until she notices? Lisa asked, her legal pad already covered in notes. She won't, I replied. Not until the wedding day. That's what she cares about most, her perfect society wedding. I thought back to how this all started. Rebecca and I had grown up together, raised by our grandmother after our parents died in a car accident. We were more than cousins. We were sisters, best friends. At least, that's what I believed. But Rebecca had always wanted more. While I was content with our comfortable life, She dreamed of joining Boston's elite. When she met Thomas Bradford at a charity gala last year, she saw her chance. He came from old money, the kind of family she'd always envied. The first warning sign came when she started changing. Subtle things at first, like canceling our weekly dinners, becoming obsessed with social media and her public image. Then came the spending, designer clothes, luxury cars, lavish parties to impress Thomas's family. I trusted her when she said she was just enjoying our inheritance, celebrating our grandmother's memory. That was my first mistake. Show me the timeline, I said to Maya. She pulled up a detailed flowchart on the main screen. Phase 1 is complete. She believes you've accepted everything. Phase 2 starts next week, when the wedding vendors begin receiving their payment confirmations. James nodded. All the fake transactions are in place. As far as any of them know, they've been paid in full. And Thomas? I asked. Still completely in the dark about where the money really came from, Lisa confirmed. He thinks Rebecca's family was just, well off. I smiled slightly. Rebecca had played her part perfectly, crafting an image of old money and refined taste. She'd even started speaking differently, adopting the subtle mannerisms of Boston's upper class. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Don't forget, final dress fitting next week. Try not to look too devastated about the money. We wouldn't want to ruin the photos. I showed the message to my team. She really thinks she's won. Are you sure about the timing? Maya asked. We could expose her sooner, stop the wedding before. No, I cut her off. She wants her perfect day. Let her have it, right up until the moment it falls apart. I turned back to the monitors, watching as our plan continued to unfold. Rebecca thought she'd inherited a substantial estate and spent it all on her dream wedding. What she actually gotten was access to the smaller trusts, the one our grandmother had set up knowing it might be misused. The real estate, the investment accounts, the family business, all of that had been quietly transferred into a separate trust years ago. A trust that would only activate under specific conditions. Start the sequence, I told James. Make sure everything looks perfect right up until the wedding day. He nodded, fingers flying over his keyboard. The vendors are already set up. They all think they've been paid, but the actual transactions will bounce, I finished. Every single one of them, right in the middle of her perfect ceremony. The next few hours were spent finalizing details. Lisa reviewed the legal documentation one more time, ensuring everything was airtight. Maya coordinated with our contacts in the banking industry, making sure the transaction failures would be properly documented. And James worked his magic with the digital trails. Around sunset, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Rebecca. The flowers arrived for tomorrow's bridal shower. You really should see them, Charlie. This is what real money can buy. I showed the message to the others. She really has no idea what's coming, does she? Lisa said, shaking her head. Rebecca always did confuse wealth with worth. I replied, tomorrow she starts learning the difference. The morning of Rebecca's wedding dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for what Boston's social pages were calling the event of the season. I stood in front of the mirror in the bridal suite of the Fairmont Copley Plaza, adjusting my maid of honor dress while Rebecca fussed with her custom Vera Wang gown. Everything has to be perfect, she said for the 100th time, scrutinizing her reflection. Thomas's family expects nothing less. I smiled, checking my phone discreetly. A message from Maya flashed across the screen. All systems ready. Vendor payments failing in sequence. Don't worry, I told Rebecca, tucking my phone away. Everything will be exactly as it should be. The bridal suite was a flurry of activity. Hairstylists, makeup artists, photographers, all carefully selected to create Rebecca's fantasy wedding. Each one had received confirmation of payment, not knowing that those confirmations were as hollow as the bride's promises. I still can't believe it's finally happening, Rebecca gushed, accepting a glass of champagne from one of her bridesmaids. All those years of dreaming, and now I'm marrying into the Bradford family. Grandmother would have been so proud. I bit back a response, thinking of the real pride our grandmother had taken, not in social status or wealth, but in honesty and integrity. Values Rebecca had conveniently forgotten. My phone buzzed again. James this time. First vendor payment bounced. Florist trying to reach Rebecca. Right on schedule. Oh God, one of the bridesmaids suddenly exclaimed, looking at her phone. Rebecca, the florist is saying there's a problem with their payment. Rebecca's face tightened slightly, but she maintained her composed smile. It's just a mix-up. Charlie, be a dear and handle it. Of course, I said smoothly, stepping out of the suite. In the hallway, I watched the notifications start rolling in on my phone. One by one, vendor payments were being rejected. The caterer, the band, the photographer, even the hotel itself. I dialed Maya. How's it looking? Beautiful chaos, she replied. The florist is threatening to remove the arrangements, the caterer is demanding immediate payment, and the hotel manager is heading up to speak with Rebecca right now. As if on cue, I saw the manager striding down the hallway, his face set in a professional mask of concern. I stepped aside as he knocked on the bridal suite door. Miss Warren, he called. We need to discuss an urgent matter regarding payment. The door flew open, revealing Rebecca in her wedding gown, her carefully applied makeup already showing signs of stress. What do you mean, payment? Everything was handled weeks ago. I'm afraid there seems to be a problem with all the vendor payments, the manager explained. The transactions have been rejected by your bank. Rebecca's face went pale. That's impossible. I have the confirmation emails. Yes, well, the manager cleared his throat. It appears those confirmations were premature. We'll need immediate payment to proceed with the wedding. I watched as Rebecca's perfect facade began to crack. She fumbled for her phone, probably trying to access the accounts she thought were still full of our grandmother's money. This is insane, she muttered, her fingers shaking as she typed. The money was there. I checked yesterday. Problems? I asked innocently. She grabbed my arm, pulling me back into the suite. Charlie, I need you to help me fix this. There must be some mistake. Like the mistake you made when you stole my inheritance? I asked quietly. She froze, really looking at me for the first time that day. What did you do? Me? Nothing. I just made sure everyone knew exactly where their money wasn't coming from. The color drained from her face as understanding dawned. You knew? All this time? I knew everything, Rebecca. The fake transfers, the emptied accounts, even the lies you told Thomas about your family's wealth. As if summoned by his name, there was another knock at the door. Thomas's mother stood there, her face tight with barely contained fury. Rebecca, she said coldly, we need to talk. Now. The next hour was like watching a carefully constructed house of cards collapse in slow motion. The vendors began removing their unpaid services, flowers disappeared from the reception hall, catering staff packed up their equipment, the band started loading out their instruments. Thomas's family, already skeptical of their son's whirlwind romance, demanded answers about Rebecca's supposedly wealthy background. The truth about her systematic theft of our grandmother's estate came out in a rush of accusations and tears. You lied to me, Thomas demanded, his face a mask of betrayal. About everything. I did it for us, Rebecca pleaded. For our future. Our future, he laughed bitterly. There is no future. The wedding's off. As the Bradford family swept out of the hotel, taking their son and their social connections with them, Rebecca turned on me, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. How could you do this to me? She demanded. I'm your family. Family? I repeated. Family doesn't steal from each other, Rebecca. Family honors their promises. I was going to pay you back, she insisted, once I married Thomas. No, I cut her off. You were going to keep taking, just like you always have. But not anymore. I pulled out an envelope, the real reason I'd let this charade continue so long. Grandmother left more than just the money you stole, I explained, watching her face as understanding dawned. She left instructions, conditions for the real inheritance. Real inheritance? Rebecca whispered. The family business, the properties, the investment accounts all held in a separate trust. A trust that would only activate if one of us proved worthy of it. And you think you're worthy? She spat. No, I said quietly. I think neither of us was until today. Grandmother knew one of us might be tempted to take advantage of the other. This was her test, to see who would choose integrity over greed. The implications of what she'd done, not just to me, but to her own future, finally seemed to hit Rebecca. She sank into a chair, her perfect wedding dress crumpling around her. What happens now? She asked, her voice small. Now? Now you start over. Without the stolen money, without the fake status, without the lies. Maybe then you'll remember what really matters. I left her there, surrounded by the ruins of her perfect day. Outside the hotel, Maya, James, and Lisa were waiting. Well? Maya asked. It's done, I replied. Everything exactly as grandmother planned. Lissa smiled sadly. She would be proud, not of the deception, but of the lesson. I nodded, thinking of all the summers spent listening to our grandmother's stories about integrity, about doing what's right even when it's hard. She had known this day might come, had prepared for it in her own way. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings and media coverage. The story of the society wedding that wasn't made all the local papers. Rebecca's carefully constructed image crumbled as the truth about her theft came to light. She left Boston shortly after, unable to face the social humiliation. Last I heard, she was working at a bank in Seattle, starting over from scratch. The family business continued under my leadership, guided by the principles our grandmother had taught us. The real inheritance wasn't just the money or the properties, it was the understanding that true wealth comes from integrity, not deception. One afternoon, about a month after everything had settled, I sat in our grandmother's study, my study now, looking through old photo albums. Pictures of Rebecca and me as children, playing in this very room, unaware of the lessons life would teach us. Maya knocked on the door, carrying a familiar bottle of champagne. Found this in the cellar, she said. Thought maybe it was time for a proper celebration. I smiled, recognizing our grandmother's favorite vintage. Why not? But this time, let's celebrate something real. As we shared the champagne, I thought about Rebecca, about the choices that had led us here. Part of me wished things could have been different, that she could have learned these lessons without such public consequences. But as I sat in our grandmother's chair, surrounded by the legacy she truly left us, I knew that sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones we need most. To grandmother, Maya proposed, raising her glass. No, I corrected her, to doing what's right, because in the end, that's the only inheritance that really matters. The email landed in my inbox at exactly 3:17 a.m. Access denied. Administrator privileges revoked. I smiled, imagining Amanda's face when she tried to log into our company's systems in a few hours. My sister never did understand that running a tech company required more than just owning shares. My name is Megan Chen, and I was about to teach my sister that true power isn't found in legal documents, it's built in lines of code. Did you do it? Nathan's text came through moments later. My CTO had been waiting for this signal for months, ever since we discovered Amanda's scheme. It's done, I replied. How long until she notices? Based on her usual login time? About 4 hours. Want me to record her reaction? I hesitated, then typed, no, I want to see it myself. 3 months ago, I would have avoided any confrontation with Amanda. We'd founded Codecraft Solutions together 5 years ago, turning my programming skills and her business degree into a $50 million company. But that was before I discovered the fake contract, before I learned how thoroughly my own sister had betrayed me. The signs had been there, looking back. Amanda's increasing secrecy about our finances, the way she brushed me to sign paperwork during our mother's funeral, claiming it was just routine updates while I was grieving. Her subtle manipulation, playing on our childhood dynamics where she was always the strong one, the smart one, while I was just the quiet geek who was good with computers. I got up from my desk, walking to the window of my home office. The city was still dark, but dawn wasn't far off. Soon, Amanda would arrive at Codecraft's headquarters, confident in her victory, only to find herself locked out of everything. My phone buzzed, a text from Claire, our head of HR. Security team is briefed. We're ready. Everything was in place. While Amanda had been busy with her legal maneuvering, I'd been preparing. She thought owning the company meant controlling it. She was about to learn the difference. At 7:30 a.m., I walked into Codecraft's office, nodding to the security team. They'd already been briefed about the potential situation. Our employees were arriving, settling into their workstations, unaware of the drama about to unfold. Morning, Megan, called Tony from engineering. Did you see the error reports from last night's test build? Already fixed, I replied, managing a smile. This was why I loved our company. The actual work, the problem solving, the team that had become like family. Everything Amanda saw as just numbers on a spreadsheet. At 7:45, right on schedule, Amanda strutted through the front doors. My sister had always been the picture of corporate success, designer suits, perfect hair, the kind of confidence that came from never doubting your own superiority. Today, she'd outdone herself, probably planning to celebrate her takeover. Good morning, little sister, she called out, her heels clicking across the lobby. I trust you've had time to process everything. I kept my voice neutral. Of course. Would you like to go over the transition plan in your office? She smiled that condescending smile I'd known since childhood. My office? Oh, you mean the CEO's office. Yes, let's do that. I followed her to the elevator, watching as she punched in her code. Nothing happened. That's strange, she muttered, trying again. Still nothing. Problem? I asked innocently. She shot me an irritated look. Technical glitch. I'm sure you can fix it. That's all you've ever been good at, right? The technical stuff? Right, I agreed, entering my own code. The elevator hummed to life. Just the technical stuff. Amanda's first hint at something was seriously wrong came when her desktop computer failed to recognize her login. The second came when her phone lost access to the company email server. What's going on? She demanded, jabbing at her keyboard. Why isn't anything working? I sat down across from her, feeling strangely calm. Did you really think I wouldn't have backups? Philosophis, that I just hand over everything we built because you tricked me into signing some papers? Her face flushed. Those papers are legally binding, Megan. I own Codecraft now. You signed over your shares, your position, everything. You own shares in a company, I corrected her. But this company runs on code, my code. And while you were busy with your legal tricks, I was busy too. I pulled out my tablet, showing her the system logs. Every piece of proprietary software we developed, every client interface, every bit of infrastructure, it all requires administrative access. Access that, as of 3 hours ago, only I have. She stood up so quickly her chair rolled back and hit the wall. You can't do this. I'll sue you. For what? I asked calmly. For maintaining security protocols. For protecting company assets. Everything I've done is documented, justified, and most importantly, legal. I'll hire other programmers. She threatened. They can rebuild everything. I actually laughed at that. Really? You think you can just recreate 5 years of development? Our entire code base is locked down. Even if you could find programmers capable of rebuilding it, how long would that take? How many clients would you lose in the meantime? The reality of her situation was starting to sink in. Amanda slowly sank back into her chair. What do you want? She asked, her voice smaller now. A new agreement, I said, pulling out a folder. One that reflects the real value each of us brings to this company. You're good at business, Amanda. I've never denied that. But I'm not just the quiet little sister anymore. Her hands were shaking slightly as she took the folder. You planned this? All of it. I learned from the best, I replied. You taught me that family doesn't mean anything in business, remember. When you used Mom's funeral to push through your fake contract. She had the grace to look ashamed, at least for a moment. I shouldn't have. No, I agreed. You shouldn't have. Now, should we discuss the new terms, or would you like to try explaining to our clients why none of their systems are working? Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Nathan. Board members are arriving early. They want to know what's going on with the system access issues. Perfect timing. Looks like we'll have an audience for this discussion, I told Amanda, ready to face the board and explain your brilliant takeover plan. For the first time since we were kids, I saw real fear in my sister's eyes. The game had changed, and she knew it. The boardroom was already full when Amanda and I arrived. 8 pairs of eyes watched us take our seats, everyone aware that something significant was happening but unsure exactly what. Would someone like to explain why our entire system is running on limited access? Richard Barnes, our lead investor, asked. His tone was calm, but I could hear the underlying tension. Amanda opened her mouth to speak, but I beat her to it. Actually, yes, I said, pulling out copies of both contracts. Amanda's fraudulent one and my new proposal. We're dealing with a security protocol I implemented after discovering an attempt to take over the company through questionable means. I distributed the documents, watching faces change as board members began reading. Amanda sat rigid beside me, her knuckles white where she gripped the armrest of her chair. This first contract, I continued, was presented to me during our mother's funeral, described as routine paperwork. As you can see, it actually transferred complete control of Codecraft to Amanda, effectively removing me from the company I helped build. Is this true? Richard turned to Amanda, his expression darkening. It's more complicated than that, she started, but fell silent as I pulled up the security footage on the boardroom screen. There she was, caught on camera, rushing me to sign papers while I was clearly distraught, barely looking at what was put in front of me. The timestamp showed it was less than an hour after Mom's service. Ms. Chen, Richard's voice was ice cold now. Do you have any idea how many regulations this violates? Before Amanda could respond, I brought up another screen. Our company metrics from the past 5 years. Codecraft's success isn't just about business strategies, I explained. Our proprietary software, which I developed, is what sets us apart. Every major client we have depends on systems I created. Systems that require continuous maintenance and updates by me and my team. Nathan chose that moment to enter, right on cue. Megan, we've got clients calling. They want to know why their access is restricted to basic functions only. What exactly have you done? Richard asked, leaning forward. Protected our company's assets, I replied. Every bit of code I've written includes failsafes. If unauthorized changes are made to company structure or leadership, the systems automatically enter protected mode. It's all documented in our security protocols. I pulled up another document, the security measures I'd implemented months ago, all properly filed and approved. This isn't just about ownership, I continued. It's about understanding what makes Codecraft valuable. Amanda sees numbers on a spreadsheet. I see the actual technology that keeps us competitive. The board members exchanged glances. They were business people, but they weren't stupid. They understood that a tech company without its tech was just an empty shell. What are you proposing? Richard asked. I handed out copies of my new agreement, a restructuring that reflects reality. Amanda keeps her business development role. She's good at it when she's not trying to take over the company. I maintain control of our technical operations and intellectual property. Equal ownership, divided responsibilities. And if I refuse? Amanda's voice was barely controlled. Then I walk away, I said simply. Take my team with me. Start fresh. How long do you think Codecraft would last with no access to its core technology? The room was silent as everyone processed this. Amanda's face went through a range of emotions. Anger, fear, finally settling on resignation. The board needs to discuss this privately, Richard announced. Ms. Chen, both of you, please wait outside. In the hallway, Amanda paced while I sat quietly, checking messages from my team. Client calls were piling up, each one a reminder of how dependent the company was on systems only I could fully access. You've changed, Amanda said suddenly, stopping her pacing. The Megan I knew would never have done this. The Megan you knew trusted her sister. I replied, not looking up from my phone. She learned better. I was trying to protect the company, she argued, but her voice lacked conviction. No, you were trying to control it. There's a difference. Before she could respond, the boardroom door opened. Richard's assistant beckoned us back in. The next hour was intense. The board had questions about everything. The technical systems, the client relationships, the proposed new structure. I answered each one calmly, demonstrating exactly why I'd become indispensable to Codecraft's success. Amanda sat silently through most of it, her perfect corporate facade cracking bit by bit as she realized how thoroughly I'd outmaneuvered her. Finally, Richard cleared his throat. We've reached a decision. The board approves the new arrangement, with some minor adjustments. He slid a revised contract across the table. I suggest you both review this carefully. Very carefully. I read through the document, noting the changes. They were fair, even adding some protections I hadn't thought of. Amanda read her copy more slowly, her hands trembling slightly. If we both sign this, she said finally, what happens to the systems? They go back to normal, I replied. After a thorough security audit, of course. She picked up a pen, then hesitated. Megan, Don't, I cut her off. Just sign. We can talk about everything else later. One by one, we signed where indicated. With each signature, I felt the weight of the past few months lifting. This wasn't a complete victory. There were still wounds to heal, trust to rebuild. But it was a start. As the board members filed out, Richard paused by my chair. Well played, he said quietly. Your mother would be proud. I watched him leave, those words hitting harder than I expected. Would Mom be proud of either of us? Amanda was still sitting there, staring at the signed contracts. What now? She asked, sounding more like my sister than my business rival for the first time in months. I stood up, gathering my things. Now we do our jobs, separately but equally. And maybe we work on being sisters again. Eventually. She nodded slowly. I really am sorry, Megan. I got caught up in. I know, I said. But trust takes longer to rebuild than it does to break. Remember that next time you're tempted to play power games. The next 3 months were a lesson in careful balance. Amanda and I established clear boundaries. She handled external business relationships and growth strategy, while I managed our technical operations and development. We communicated through official channels, kept meetings strictly professional, and slowly began rebuilding Codecraft into something stronger than before. It wasn't easy. Years of sisterly competition didn't disappear overnight, and there were moments when old tensions threatened to surface. But we had something now that we never had before: respect for each other's true capabilities. One evening, as I was reviewing code for our newest project, Amanda appeared in my office doorway. She looked different, less polished, more human somehow. "Got a minute?" she asked, hovering uncertainly at the threshold. I gestured to a chair, saving my work. "What's up?" "The Wilson contract," she began, setting a folder on my desk. "They want to triple their service package, but it would require significant system modifications." I opened the folder, scanning the requirements. "This is big. Like, rewrite half our core systems big." "I know," she said. "That's why I wanted to discuss it with you first. The old me would have just promised them everything and expected you to make it work." The admission surprised me. "And the new you?" "The new me recognizes that I don't fully understand the technical implications. I need your expertise to make this decision." I leaned back, studying my sister. The Amanda of 6 months ago would never have admitted to needing anyone's help. "It's doable," I said finally, "but we'd need to expand the development team, maybe bring in some specialized talent. Timeline would be tight." She nodded, taking notes. "Budget? 7 figures, minimum. Plus we need to pause some other projects." "Okay," she said, sanding. "I'll tell them we need a week to prepare a proper proposal. Both of us will present it together." As she reached the door, she paused. "Hey, Megan. Mom's birthday is next week. I was thinking maybe we could visit her grave together." The question caught me off guard. We hadn't visited Mom's grave together since the funeral, since the day Amanda had betrayed my trust. "I'll think about it," I said carefully. She nodded, understanding this was neither a yes nor a no, and left. The next week was intense. Amanda and I worked late into the nights, combining her business strategy with my technical knowledge to create a proposal that could reshape Codecraft's future. It was the first time we truly collaborated as equals, each bringing our strengths to the table. Nathan watched us with amusement. "Never thought I'd see this," he commented one evening, as Amanda and I argued productively over system architecture diagrams. "See what?" I asked. "You two actually working together instead of competing. It's like watching matter and antimatter learn to coexist." He had a point. Something had shifted between us. The power struggle was over, replaced by something more balanced, more mature. The day of Mom's birthday dawned clear and crisp. I found Amanda waiting by my car in the office parking lot, holding 2 bouquets of white lilies, Mom's favorite. "You don't have to come," she said quietly. "I know," I replied, unlocking the doors. "Get in." The drive to the cemetery was silent. As we walked to Mom's grave, memories flooded back, both good and bad. The sister who had protected me from bullies in school. The businesswoman who had tried to take everything from me. "I miss her," Amanda said suddenly, kneeling to arrange the flowers. "She would have known how to handle all of this better." "Would she?" I asked, thinking of our mother's own struggles with family and business. Or would she have just wanted us to figure it out ourselves? Amanda smiled slightly. "Probably both." She stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "You know, she always said you were the smart one. I was so jealous of that." "What?" "You were the golden child. The perfect daughter. Perfect at following rules, maybe, but you created things. Built things. I just played the game everyone expected me to play." We stood there in silence, letting those truths sink in. "The Wilson presentation is tomorrow," I said finally. "Ready?" She nodded. "Think we can pull this off?" "Together?" "Yeah, I think we can." The next morning, we faced the Wilson team as a united front. Amanda handled the business strategy while I explained the technical innovations we proposed. When questions came up, we tag-teamed the responses, each deferring to the other's expertise. We landed the contract, the biggest in Codecraft's history. Celebrating in my office later, Amanda raised her coffee cup in a toast. To the Chen sisters? To doing things right, I corrected, but I was smiling as I clinked my cup against hers. That evening, as I prepared to leave the office, I found a small package on my desk. Inside was a framed photo. Amanda and me as kids, sitting at our first computer, both of us grinning at the screen. The note attached read, "Found this in Mom's things. Thought you should have it." I placed the photo next to my monitors, a reminder of where we'd started and how far we'd come. 6 months after the attempted takeover, Codecraft had grown beyond our original projections. Our new dual leadership structure had become a model for other tech companies. Amanda and I had found our rhythm, each excelling in our domains while respecting the others. "Think Mom would be proud?" Amanda asked one evening as we reviewed quarterly reports. I looked at the photo on my desk, then at my sister, not my rival anymore, but my true partner in building something meaningful. "Yeah," I said. "I think she would." The company we'd built was stronger now, founded not just on technology or business strategy, but on something more fundamental, the understanding that true power comes from combining our strengths rather than fighting over control. As for being sisters, we were working on that too, one day at a time. Some wounds take longer to heal, but they do heal, if you let them. And sometimes, what you build after breaking down is stronger than what was there before.